Suprabhat, good morning from Bangalore. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because we'll not talk about an international travel destination, but we'll talk about what happens before that, the visa process. Today we'll talk about the US visa interview process. I'll tell you all about my own personal experience, and finally at the end I'll share a superpower with you. A superpower so powerful that this could mean a difference between you getting the visa or getting a rejection. Before we proceed ahead with this video, I just want to tell you that this is all about the interview process. I'm not going to cover the application process, filling up the form and all those details. If you do want me to make that video, let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely make a video and take you through my entire journey of getting the visa. So without further ado, let's start with my experience. So I started my visa application process actually in May of 2023. That's when I contacted an agent, filled up the form and did all of those things, but took quite some time to actually finally get the visa. I got my visa only in early Jan 2024, so took many months. However, from what I read on newspaper these days, this process is getting shorter day by day, and hopefully you won't have to wait for months in future very soon to get your visa interviews. I applied for and got the B1 B2 visa, which is a 10-year visa. It covers tourist visits, it covers business visits, but you're not allowed to work in US. That's very clear. So you can't work there and earn money from there. You can of course visit to meet your relatives, you can visit to see places, you could visit for conferences, business meetings and things like those. This is actually not my first US visa. My first US visa was back in 2011 when I had gone to Stanford for my fellowship, but that was not a long-term visa. That visa was really restricted to the duration of my course there. I never applied for a visa again because I never had the opportunity to go to US again, and yeah, it just seemed like such a big task to do it till last year. This is going to be a short video, but I'll still divide this into two parts because the process actually takes place in two parts. The first part is where your fingerprints are taken and your photos is taken, and the second part is when your interview is taken. Now these two steps could actually happen at the same location over 2 days. However, for most people these are on 2 different dates, which might be far apart. These might also be at different locations, like it was for me. So the first stage is pretty simple and straightforward, and there's nothing quite like rejection at that stage. So I live in Bangalore, but the appointment that I got was in Hyderabad. So I actually had to take a train, go to Hyderabad a day before my appointment. So I stayed very close to where this appointment was, so I could just walk to that place. I knew that bags are not allowed, laptops are not allowed, phones are not allowed. So very smartly I took a hotel which was very close to the appointment place. So in the morning, I actually had my breakfast, left everything back at the hotel. Everything means everything. I can't even take the Apple Watch with me or my phone or my laptop or any of these things with me. No electronics. All you have to do is take your documentation, which is very little. You have to actually get your photos clicked. The specifications are quite clear. I'll mention them in the description below as well. So you have to get your pictures clicked, even though they will take your picture there again and won't use your pictures. You're still supposed to take your pictures with you. No idea why. The other document that you need to take is your passport, of course. Take the current passport, and if you have older passports as well, you can take them along. Though in my case, nobody really checked it. Then you're supposed to take your confirmation page, which is the confirmation that you get from the website about your interview. So interview confirmation, take the printout of that. And then you have to take a DS-160 confirmation page as well along with you. The first 2 pages of that. That's it. You don't need to take anything more than that with you. In fact, you're not allowed to take anything more with you as well when you go for this interview process. So I kept everything neatly, which is these 4 documents, inside a folder, a plastic transparent folder, and I took it with me for this process. However, what I learned after going there is that there is actually a small lounge-like space where you can leave your bag and you can leave your mobile phone, laptop, etc. as well. So in case you do bring it with you, especially in Hyderabad, there is a place where you can leave these things. So that's a good thing. So my appointment was at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I reached I think around 10 o'clock there already. There was a lot of crowd. There were people standing up in queue. And I went and spoke to the guard who told me that don't line up now. I'll tell you when you should line up. So I just waited like in this big mass of people who were just nervously waiting for their turn. So at 10:45 or so, they called everybody, all of us who were there for the 11 o'clock interview. I jumped in first, and so I was the first one in the queue. But very quickly, a very long line is made. But they only allow people for that 11 o'clock slot or for your time slot. Nobody else is allowed. They actually come and check your documentation. If you're not from that slot, they will send you back. Twice, my documents were checked. All my documents were checked. Once I was standing on the line, somebody came and checked my document. And then later on, just before I entered the gate, they checked my documents. Once you enter, there's a metal detector. So they scan everything. They ask you to take out everything from your pocket, keep it in the bin, and then walk through the door. It's pretty much like an airport screening process. And then they give you all these things back. Then you go and stand in another line inside. This is a line where they will again check your documents and they'll give you a token number. And then they will send you to another line where you'll wait with your token number. It sounds pretty complicated when I say it, but it's a very simple process. It's not crowded at all inside. There's no mayhem, no halla gulla, not noisy at all. It's pretty calm and relaxed atmosphere inside. There are many counters, and basically your token number gets displayed and also gets called out, and then you go to that specific counter, and first they do your fingerprint scanning. Again, nothing much. They will say, okay, put your left hand in, scan, right hand, scan, thumbs, scan, and you're done. Unless there's a problem, in terms of getting the correct scan because your hands are too wet or sweaty or oily, it should not take more than a minute or so. So after a fingerprint scan is done, your picture is taken, and pretty much that's all about it. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to follow the instructions. I was maybe done in 10 minutes or so from the time I entered to the time I exited out. But that's also because I was the first in line. So there were not many people ahead of me. There were only some people from the previous slot who were ahead of me. So it was a pretty fast, very seamless process, I would say. I would say if your appointment is at 11, by 12 o'clock, you are definitely done. Most likely by 11:30 you will be definitely done, and then you are free to go out. You have to do nothing. They actually give your document back to you. They kind of put a stamp on it, and they kind of tick mark a few things that they have checked. So the stamp is actually of the day of the interview. So my interview date was 22nd December 2023. So I was done that day, and then that evening I took another train and came back to Bangalore. Alright, so let me now talk about the second phase of the interview process. Now, this is the part that actually scares most people. This is the part where the decision about your visa application is taken by the visa officer, and it is a place where a lot of people are very stressed, and this is a place where there are a lot of acceptances, but of course, many hearts are also broken because the rejections are also quite high. So I was checking the stats recently, and it seems about 1 out of 4 applicants have their visa applications rejected. That's 25%. That's really high. Now, this interview was on the 9th of January 2024, and it was in Chennai. So first one was on 22nd December in Hyderabad, part 2 was in Chennai. Chennai is actually great for me because it's close to Bangalore and it's really well connected. So I took a train and went to Chennai the previous evening. I booked the hotel very close to where the appointment was, somewhere that was actually walking distance. In fact, that place is full of many hotels. So on day 2, which is the day of the interview, my interview was actually for the first slot, which is the 8 a.m. slot. I started from my hotel at around 7:15 in the morning. I thought I'll reach early so that, I'm not the last one in the line. But once I reached there, I realized that there were so many people already waiting in the queue. They're like 50, 60 people, maybe more than that, already standing in the queue. So I went again to the guard and asked him that I have an 8 o'clock interview, where should I stand? And he asked me to stand in a very long line. In fact, the longer of the 2 lines that were there. So it seems like there were 2 lines. One was 8 o'clock line, the other one was 8:30 line. So I went and stood far behind many different people. Now, this was really interesting because even before it was 8 o'clock, like half an hour before that at 7:30, they said, okay, 8 o'clock line, people come and show their documents. Again, there was staff walking around checking everybody's documents. And just like in Hyderabad, there were a lot of people here who didn't have the 8 o'clock slot, but they were still standing in the line. So they were taken out of the line and the line became much shorter. So I was not really far away in the end. We are still not inside the embassy. In fact, we are a little bit away from the embassy, and they come and check your documents one by one. And as they check your document, they let you go ahead towards the embassy. So you walk towards the embassy. You're still not near the gate of the embassy. Your documents are checked at multiple times to make sure that you have the right documents, you have all the documents with you. And I'll talk about what documents you need in a bit, but let me just tell you how we enter first. You follow the person who's ahead of you. Again, just like Hyderabad, here also there is a metal detector. They ask you to take out everything from your pockets, keep everything in a tray, and you pass through and reach inside. This must be around 7:40 or so, and we were already inside the embassy. Now inside, there was no token given to us, unlike Hyderabad. We just walked in and stood in a line. So inside there were 3 lines. The first line was for English speakers, people who had selected English as their language for the interview. Then there was a line for Hindi, Urdu speakers, and the third line was for Tamil, Kannada, and Telugu. I may be mixing up a little bit of languages here, but 3 lines, 3 different group of people standing there. English was, of course, the longest line, followed by the line for Tamil speakers. Everybody standing with a big stash of documents with them, and I was no different. I also had lots of documents with me. I had, in fact, too many documents with me. Now that I think back, I am like, wow, I really worked hard to get all documentations together. And I'm pretty sure all the people who were there had also done a lot of homework, a lot of hard work to put everything together into that file. So what documents did I have? So I had all my educational certificates, all the way from my engineering to design to Stanford, all of them. Then I had some documentation documentations to prove that I'm in good financial standing. So I had home loan document, I had document for income tax for the last 3 years, I had last 3 months bank statements, I had some documents around the mutual fund investments and those kind of things. With the way things are right now, this was not the biggest chunk. So I'm visiting US to meet my cousin brother, and so I also had an invitation letter from him that I had printed out. What I did not have was an itinerary for my travel and my travel plans. I did not have any ticket bookings, and you don't need all of those things to apply for US visa, which is quite different from rest of the visas, especially if you look for Schengen visa and those, where you have to have all of those things in advance when you apply for visa. But how important are these documents? Now, in my experience, these documents may be important and could come very handy if somebody asks you for these, but nobody really asks you for documents when you're there for your interview. If you're applying for your student visa, you might be asked for your I-20. But it's highly unlikely they will ever ask you for your bank statements or your mutual fund statements or your home loan or those kind of details. A, they really don't have enough time to go through those documents and check whether they're correct or incorrect, whether they should approve them or not approve them, because documents can be forged. Somebody could bring anybody's document. You could Photoshop names, you can Photoshop amounts. How would that visa officer actually check the authenticity of these documents? It's not possible. Similar is the case with your school leaving certificates, with your any certificates for your engineering or for whatever educational qualifications you have. There's no way she can authenticate his signature or the details he's mentioned about himself. So I feel that documents, even though they may be important, and you should definitely prepare a file, because in case somebody asks you for these, you may have to show them, but more likely than not, you'll not be asked for any documentation. For this visa interview, there were two things that were not really in my favor, and I want to really share it with you upfront because this could be an issue for some of us. The first thing is that I'm not married. I'm an unmarried guy, and I recently left my job also, so I'm also an unemployed guy. This is not the best profile when it comes to a visa application process, right? People think that if you are like this, you have no ties back home with you, you have no job that you have to come back to, you might want to immigrate to the country. And that is definitely something not very good in my profile as well. But I did have a few strong points also. The fact that I've been to US before, I've studied there, the fact that I travel a lot, the fact that my passports are full of entry and exit stamps from many different countries across the world, lots and lots of Schengen visas, Australia visa, New Zealand visa, Canada visa. Like, I've traveled a lot across the world. So that really, I feel, is a powerful point on my passport. This was kind of a balance that was there in my application process. I didn't know if me being unmarried and unemployed would go completely against me and would be a reason for my rejection. I didn't really find a watch on the wall, but some people were wearing normal regular watches, not electronic watches. And I saw the time was around 7:45 right now, when it was my time, almost my time to go for the visa interview. Now, people ahead of me were going really fast. And as we were standing there, I could see more and more windows opening up and more visa officers coming and sitting there, taking their places. And, a lot of us were the first ones to go for the interview for that visa officer. Something similar happened to me as well. I was standing in a different queue, but then a visa officer came and she opened the window and the guard was like, okay, you go and speak to her. And then after me, there were two more people. So it was me at the window and then there were two more people behind me. And the windows are pretty close by. So, you can hear each other's conversation. But frankly, you're so thinking about your own interview that you're not bothered about what others are asking, what others are saying. But as I was standing in the line, you could observe a lot of people and there's a lot to learn from the body language. I could see so many people walking back with their passports in hand and looking really sad, and that is not the best thing to see actually when you're going for an interview, because this can stress you out. So my tip here would be not to think about others, look at others, but just be focused on your own visa application process. So it was time now for my interview. As I mentioned, my visa officer was a lady, an American lady, and I was the first one on her window. So I approached my visa officer with a big smile and a hello, good morning. She replied back with the same, and with that, we kind of had a first smile exchanged and we started the interview. She asked me to give my passport, so I kept it in the tray and the tray then went inside. She picked the passport, opened it, looked inside, and then she did something on her monitor and asked me the first question. So immediately after the interview, I made a list of all the questions that was asked, and so I'm going to use this as reference and tell you about my questions. The first question that I was asked, and this is a question that's asked of everyone who visits for whatever visa type you're visiting, which is, what's the purpose of your visit? In my case, I was visiting to meet my cousin brother, so I mentioned that. However, I made sure that I did not answer her in just one word. I formed a proper sentence and I answered her. It's like having a conversation with somebody. You want to give a bit more detail and context. The visa officer doesn't know you well or at all, so it's good to give a bit of context when you answer. So I answered that I'm going to meet my cousin brother. he lives here and I'm meeting him after so many years. The next question was, how long will I stay there? And to answer this, I just used my DS-160 as a reference. I had mentioned 3 weeks there, so that's exactly what I mentioned here as well. I think it's important to have the same information that you shared, that you have given earlier. That shows, that you know where you're going and why you're going and how long you're going to spend your time there. It's not like somebody has taught you these answers. And it also kind of means that you're not lying about anything in your interview. If you make a mistake also, it might come across as an intentional lie. So make sure you answer these questions correctly in terms of how you have shared them in advance also. She actually did ask me a few questions about where he works. He works in the university, and so I talked a little bit about it. Thankfully, he's a cousin that I'm quite fond of, and we meet sometimes, so I know a little bit about his life and his work, so I could answer these questions well. And I have actually visited and stayed with them in the past as well on my first US visit, so I do know about where they live, so I could talk a little bit more about these questions when I was answering her and not just answering in one word. She also asked me, have I been to US before? Again, something that she knows from my past record. And she asked me, why did I go there? How long did I stay? What did I study when I was in US? And frankly, my credentials of my last visit to US are actually very good because I studied at Stanford. I was actually on full scholarship and I was also earning a stipend there. So I think that's a positive thing again on my previous visit to US. Then she asked me, what did I do for a living? I'm a photographer and a content creator, and I mentioned all these things to her. I gave a bit of description how I earn my money as well, how I work with tourism boards and brands, create content for them, videos, photos, blah, blah, blah. And that's my source of income. She specifically asked me how much I earn every month. And then came the big question, which is about my singlehood or about the fact whether I'm married or not married. And frankly, this is information that's available with her already because it's there in my DS-160. But she still asked me, am I married? And I said, I'm not married. And I shared a few more details about my relationship status in life. And at the end of it, we were both laughing about it. And I felt that, this is towards the end of the interview. We broke the ice at that point of time because she could really relate to how I answered this question. And I think it was a good answer. I usually don't share much about my personal life, but I thought this was a place where I could, and I did. It seemed like a really long time when I was standing there for the interview, but I think it was not more than 5-6 minutes. And that's it. I said thank you and I walked away from the counter. And as I came out, I saw the time on the guard's watch and it was 8:05. So just 5 minutes after my actual time for interview, I was done and I was out and I was walking back towards the hotel. And this is it. Not even a week, just 3 days after my visa interview, I received a courier at my home, a Blue Dart courier, and I got my passport back. As expected, the visa is valid for 10 years, so it's valid till 2034, which is pretty nice. Alright, so it's now time for me to share that powerful Brahmastra, the most powerful weapon that we have that we can use for this visa application. And I think that's the biggest differentiator when it comes to getting a visa application approved or rejected. And it's a very simple answer. It's the confidence that you have. You have to be very, very, very confident when you go for your interview. Even if you're not confident inside, you have to portray a level of confidence that is really important. I think if you're not confident, a visa officer is not going to be confident about your answers. Even if you're saying everything correctly, you're not lying, you're not making up anything. If you don't look confident about your answers, you will not pass on that confidence to the visa officer, and that's really important to do. Go with a smile, go with a cheerful, good, happy mood, talk confidently, talk with a good, powerful voice, talk in a voice that commands respect. This confidence is also seen in your body language when you walk with your shoulder back. Don't slouch there. And this confidence is not just in the way you speak, this confidence is also the way you dress up. So dress up nicely. I actually don't wear pant and shirt that often, but I made sure that I wore full sleeves shirt and I wore khakis and I wore shoes. These things are really important. These things are life lessons, not just visa interview lessons. But if you can utilize these here, I can tell you and I can assure you that your application is very likely to get approved. Anyway, this is all for today's video. I hope this was useful for some of you out there. If you have more questions about the experience of the visa interview, let me know in the comment below and I will answer that question. If you want me to make more such videos about visa application process for other countries, again let me know and I'll do my best. And finally, if you like this video, do like it here on YouTube as well and subscribe to this channel in case you want to follow my travel journeys across the world. It's time for me to say goodbye. See you in the next video.